Hi everybody, it's Stacy Sobel with Salon Today Conversations, and today I'm with Travis and Adelle Graham at Salon Adelle in Greenville, South Carolina. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. I don't always get my Carolinas right, so I was like, is it south or is it north? Good to see you guys. How are you?
Good. It's
We're
good to
doing
see
good.
you too again.
Yes.
We're doing good. We're on today is week 3 of opening back up.
That's great. And you did something really unique. You had a consultant you were working with on marketing before the pandemic, but he was a process engineer. He was working on marketing, but you learned he was a process engineer, and you really used him during the closure to re-examine your processes and make them as lean and mean as possible. So tell us a little bit about that process.
Yeah, great. So when we decided to hire him as a consultant, he brought 3 points to us, and like, let's look at this from these 3 points, and being the most important to the least important is safety, timing, and profitability. And in the safety part, he was like, so how do we responsibly and safely open up the brand and keep the team safe and keep the guests feeling safe when they come in? And so we addressed a bunch of different aspects from the safety standpoint, point of view. And then from timing, he was like, how do we open up a little bit earlier? How do we stay a little bit later? And how do we stagger team and guests to be able to get them in and make it more profitable, or make the timing? It kind of did 2 parts with those. So it made it more profitable and made the safety better by staggering.
And if I can piggyback on that, we in South Carolina, we have to use social distancing. And so we have to use every other chair. And we can only have 3 out of the shampoo bowls working out of the 5. And so what does that look like when you have a lot of moving parts? He was really able to sit down with us and show us how we could make it all fit together on the schedule so that we could get the most amount of people in the timing that we have. So yeah, go ahead.
Good. No, that's good. And then the third part is profitability. So he took an overlay of the salon, like just a snapshot picture of the overlay, and we marked out what's green, what generates revenue, and what's red, what does not generate revenue with the salon. And after COVID-19, there's a whole lot more red than green. And so how do you switch that? And so we are coming up with new ways to be able to do that. And so those are the 3-step prong that we took to do it.
Well, let's start with safety. Obviously, every state has their own guidelines, and those are probably similar in South Carolina to a lot of the other states. What other things did he identify on top of that you guys put into place?
He didn't identify anything specific on top of what they said, but he identified, like, how do we operate within the guidelines they did, and how do we make it to where the guest and the team feel like you're taking this serious, and it's a serious thing. And so we did some things that's more social engineering, to where it's a visual cue and verbal cue. Kind of like when you walk into a grocery store and you see the blue lines or things like that they give. So we created blue lines that we did measurements throughout the salon and created some flow, to where when the guests walk in, they see that, they see where they can stand or move. We put things in people's path, kind of like if you want to eat better, you put a bowl of apples in front of you in the kitchen, right? So we put things in people's paths to be able to identify, all right, this is a safety thing. So like when you walk in, there's a stand for sanitation with a sign that talks about it. There's Clorox wipes if you wanted to use that for your phone and things like that. We offer a plastic bag for people's belongings. If they come in, they want to put those in there to keep them safe and secure without touching things. We have these little signs that say clean. It's like a cute little sign, but whenever the stylist has somebody sit there, that gets turned down. And that way everybody knows that one is not sanitized now. Even if the guest is not there and they're going to the shampoo bowl or something, they know that's not a sanitized area. And so it keeps a reminder, like a visual reminder as well, about the safety. No,
go ahead. We also created new processes for like check-in and check-out. And that was something that actually did not serve us at all. The first week we were open, we were going to try to check people in their cars in the parking lot. And it was like a monsoon here for the whole week. Yeah, it rained and rained and rained. And we realized, okay, this is not working. Everybody was confused. Everybody didn't know what to do because it was raining. We hadn't thought about that. So what we determined with Patrick was that, okay, let's go back to our original process and let's just expand on it versus trying something, a whole new process that we had no idea if it was going to work. Really wasn't the best time to be trying something brand new. And so we figured that out really quick in 3 days. This is not working. And we went back to, okay, our regular check-in. Now let's just add safety to that. Let's go back to our regular checkout, but let's add some safety and some express options. So that was really helpful too, because it was so overwhelming in the first week with things being new and different and us not knowing timing and all of that. So it was good to like realize pretty quick, these are not working, let's go back.
One of the other things we learned in safety is like we created a really stringent sanitation program. Like absolutely, we used a lot of guidelines that are out there that anybody can find on the internet. And we created all these scheduling systems, and that got thrown out the window after the first day. It doesn't work out the way that we had planned. And the reason is because if you schedule like 15, 30-minute intervals to clean light switches, but you only touch it one time a day, there's no use in cleaning light switches every 15 minutes. And so we found that all the way through the salon in many different things. And it took me until Friday, every day I changed the cleaning schedule, or changed it and changed it. And then by Friday, it was great the way it's lined out to where, and we used our Forest system. We used Forest. So we used our scheduling system within that schedule, the cleaning schedule. That way the team member knows, all right, at this time I'm doing 15 minutes. We call it a cleaning frenzy.
Yeah.
We call it a cleaning frenzy. That way it doesn't really have a negative connotation.
And I think the bathroom is the bathroom broom dance.
Yeah. It's not really a negative connotation, but you know, it needs to be done. The guests need to feel that's comfortable. And little things like in the bathroom, if a guest goes in there and they sit down at the restroom, they're able to see that sorry about that.
Ooh, okay.
They're able to see that like the toilet paper has a square, and so they're like, yeah, that's sanitized. And so it makes them feel comfortable, things like that.
That's great. So the next thing is timing. So what kind of things did he identify for timing that helped you?
So the main thing.
So what were the mistakes? So sounds like you got some refinements going on too.
Yes, absolutely. I think the biggest thing for us was figuring out, we have 10 chairs. So we were trying to figure out how many of those chairs are usable. And so we came up with a chair rotation. So we have a chair 1 and then chair 2 and chair 3. And we know that the guests get sat in those particular chairs as the day is going along. And so the first week, what happened was we were not sitting guests in the right chairs, and the schedule is created to stick with that process. And so we found out really, really fast that we can't start somebody early. We started somebody early 15 minutes, and then the service finished 15 minutes early, which bumped her processing time up 30 minutes. And so it collided all these guests at the same time with the same stylist. It was an absolute nightmare. That was day 2 for us. And so we realized like what is on the schedule has to actually be what we're doing. We can't finish guests too early. We can't start them late. Like they can't show up late. Things like that would just completely destroy the rest of the day. And so now into like the end of week 2, we've finally figured out that scheduling process and how many breaks we need to put in per stylist so that they're not overwhelmed. But we have reduced, like we used to be open 10 to 7 and the stylist would work from 10 to 7. And what we've done is actually reduce their time behind the chair on a daily basis, but they're actually working more days. So it ends up, it's the same hours, but they're only working 7-hour shifts. And so it keeps them feeling energetic because it's not such a long, drawn out day. And so they're actually able to see more guests that way. We have figured out. And that was his whole plan and what he was doing, but it just took me doing it to actually see it on the schedule and then see how it's actually turning out at the end of the week. So it's been really cool to see how it's all working together, as long as we stick with what's there.
So when you say you numbered the chairs, so when you see the first round of appointments, are you like 1, 3, 5?
Yep.
7,
Yes.
10, and then the next round is 2, 4.
Yes.
That? Okay.
Yep.
So yeah, you have to keep the timing right, or you're sitting a guest right next to another guest.
Exactly. Exactly. And we had that happen last week. We accidentally scheduled 3 haircuts. It was a family. It was a dad and his 2 children. And when they got here, not only did they need all 3 of the bowls that in the lather lounge that we can use, but they also needed 3 chairs at the same time. We had to put them together in a section because there was nowhere to put them. So we're figuring out as it's going through, like we're making mistakes, but we're realizing and we're adjusting the schedule for the next week and then the next week. We're not scheduling like 8 weeks out. We're just doing it a week at a time because I really want to make sure that our scheduling is correct, not only for the stylist, that they're not feeling overwhelmed, and also for the guests, that they're not waiting, or, the timing is just right for everyone. And it's a lot. It is a lot more than I ever expected it to be. Pre-COVID, I mean, this was not this much thought process for sure.
Yeah. Can I add something else in there?
Yeah.
Can I add something?
Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah. So one of the thoughts when Adelle just got finished saying what she just said is, we didn't expect that. And what I think is awesome about this entire phone call and what we're talking about is it took COVID-19 for us to be like, you know what, let's get rid of the things that don't serve us in this brand or in this industry. Let's get rid of those things and let's see what does, and let's see what works. And we create something new. And now that would not have happened had this not happened.
Yeah, getting outside of the box with scheduling.
Yeah.
It's taken COVID-19 for us to get outside that normal routine of just, the everyday schedule that we've always had.
Yeah, and one other thing in that too is, and I know we didn't talk about this, or is it really took a lot of positivity.
Yes.
And concentrating on mental health and awareness, because during this time you have 2 ways of being active and inactive. During the 8 weeks we were closed, we absolutely could have watched Netflix and hung out, which is what I wanted to do. But that's not who we committed to being. So what we did was we created the way we wanted to do it during that time frame, and we stayed positive, because there's so many times I wanted to lean into the negativity and all what we were losing out on, and all the woe is me and the victim mentality, and I wanted to go there so many times. But that's not who I'm committed to being. I'm committed to being a leader. I'm committed to bringing, Adelle and I are committed to bring this brand. And so that's one thing I want to throw out there too, is that even if you haven't opened yet, stay positive, because there's always a positive way to look at it. And when I was being the victim, our power was being sucked away from us, and we could not create anything. But when we change it from being it's a struggle to it being an opportunity, oh my goodness, Stacy, the world opens up.
That's fascinating. So you said the least of the 3 points that was the least important was profitability, but as owners, that is what fuels you. So, and what keeps everything afloat. So what things did he identify in that area? And when you zoned out, what things did you eliminate now that you zoned it out? What was red that you took away, that you changed?
There's several things. And the reason it's number 3 is because if it were switched to number 1, then they wouldn't have profit. So that's the reason we put it number 3, because if it was switched there, you wouldn't have profit, because your guests wouldn't want to come in, your team wouldn't want to come in, and you wouldn't have timing issues.
Right.
And in the red, one is we own a coffee shop. Paradigm Coffee Company is in Salon Adelle. And we just opened, not only that, we just opened our salon up. We had our grand opening 2 weeks before we closed. And we opened up the coffee shop too at the same time, and it's closed. So that's, 450 square feet of red. And then you have every other chair, if they're not being operated, that's a red. Every other lather in the lather lounge, every other shampoo bowl is red. We have the processing room where the guests would go and sit, that became red. So all these areas became red, and what we're doing to try to change those is like come up with ideas like, how do we do extra stuff? Like, do we go in and have conversations with them about like who we are? Because we represent like how we address hair is through stress, which is unique in this industry, because most people like, I can slap on color, I can cut your hair, I can put some extensions on, and I can do a lot of things right on the outside. But stress is actually what messes people's hair up.
Totally.
And that's the way we approach our guests in this industry. And so what that looks like for us is, if you can have some relief from stress, your immune system will start coming back up and your hair will start improving. And so as they're in here, they feel that oasis. They feel the stress coming down. And so we're looking at different ways of like, do we offer some coaching one-on-one sessions, because we're both coaches? Do we offer something like that to a guest in that area where they're processing? Do we do, we brought in CBD line for stuff like that. Do we go talk about stuff like that? So those are just some of the ways we're coming up with, and there's several more too.
One of the key ways that we figured out how to raise profit was because of our timing issue. We figured out we needed to make phone calls. Well, we started off doing Zoom calls with every guest. In order to have a reservation, we had to see your hair and we had to talk to you, and we had to give you our new guidelines. And it was like an epic fail. People did not want to do it. They gave us a lot of pushback. The stylists weren't feeling it. It just was a really negative experience for us. So we pivoted and figured out a different way to do it. And we switched over to Google Voice. So now all of our team members have their own private Google number, so they can feel comfortable reaching out to guests from their individual phones. So now we have created 15-minute call check-ins. And that entire call it's basically a sales call, where we find out what kind of treatments do you need, what is the shape that your hair is in, what challenges are you having, did you do anything to your hair over the last 8 weeks, things like that. And we're actually able to do all the add-ons ahead of time, so that our timing is correct on the day of, since we can't do last minute changes anymore. So that's how we took some of the red and turned it into green, just by making phone calls. So every stylist, they come in, since they're only doing 7 hours on the floor, they come in an hour early, and they might say 30 minutes late, and they might do 3 in the evening and 4 calls in the morning. And so they get their entire guest list, where they're actually connecting with them, because the guests don't want to connect with the front desk. They want to connect with their stylist.
Yeah.
And so we've just figured out that it's really working.
Yeah, and using that system, all the messages stays in one area where anybody can see the same messages to the guest. So if it's on your personal phone, which happens, you don't know who talked to who and what you said. And so that's been.
Yeah, and it keeps it just really professional as well. So the stylists are liking it, the guests are loving it. Like, it's a totally different experience, but yet it's really the same thing. It's just one was Zoom, and this one's a phone call. So it wasn't like we totally changed it. We just did a little pivot to figure out what would work.
And another thing that Patrick was saying was fear of missing out. He's been talking to us about FOMO. And when you can talk to your guests and tell them all the stuff that we can offer to help with their challenges, and that they will not have that opportunity when they get here, and we don't know when they're going to be able to rebook because the amount of guests we have on the books, they want that extra treatment.
Mm-hmm.
So you
Get it while you
have
can.
basically, you have a hair game plan before they even walk in the door.
Yes.
Absolutely. If you
And
don't plan,
they have to stick to that. They can't.
Yes.
It's like, oh, it's spring. Now I feel like highlights. And
We've had a couple of those conversations where either the guest wasn't on the same page or, you know, there was a miscommunication there. And that's a tough conversation to have, but especially when it's the first, you know, person in the morning, it would completely destroy the rest of the day. So we've just had to make really tough conversations happen to save the rest of the schedule for the rest of the day. And they've really been understanding about that when we explained the why behind it. And then we just set them up for another plan. Like, when are we going to get you back in to actually get what you're wanting done?
Yeah.
so talk about the numbers, because you've had some impressive results through this.
Oh man, we have been so impressed with this because we didn't know what would happen, right? Nobody knows what's going to happen when they open up.
No, because really, like, when we got the okay by our governor, it took us 2 days because we didn't know what the guidelines were going to be. So I didn't know really what to create for the schedule. It wasn't like we could create it way in advance. So I took 2 days to really soak in the guidelines and then figure out what we were going to do with our scheduling. And there was no way to run numbers. There was no way to like see the value on the book for that week ahead of time. So it was all like just in the dark. But what was really exciting is about halfway through, I ran our value of the week, and I actually like closed it down because I was like, I must have put in 2 weeks. Let me rerun that number. I was like, that can't be right. We had an 81% increase from our average of the whole first quarter in 1 week. And then we saw an additional 24 guests than we normally see every week, which was that like literally blew my mind. I just
That's
didn't
working
expect
at
that.
basically 50% capacity if you're every other chair.
Yes.
So
Exactly. And that's where I got really excited because I was like, you know, I realized that COVID may be around for a long time and this may be our new normal, but we would still have a lot of options within our space that we could actually rearrange the way that our styling stations are to space them out so that we could use every chair. And then like, I'm just like excited about the possibilities for sure.
Yeah.
So,
and then our second week, we had a 34% increase. And we actually had a challenge in scheduling that second week because a lot of guests were going on last minute vacations. And so they were like, can you just hold me off until week 3? And we actually created some specials for our guests that were having to wait. So starting June 22nd, we will have a special for that entire week. So anyone who books in that week, if they want to get extensions, they get $100 off a new installation and $100 off new hair. And we let our guests know that in advance so that we could reconstruct our 6-week cycle that I have been crafting for years. You know, COVID just completely destroyed it. And so we've had to rebuild it. And I was trying to think, how do I get people to stretch out 6 weeks and then rebook so we have a constant 6-week cycle? So Patrick really helped us with that too. And then when we saw what was possible with our numbers, like, we're just excited to keep tweaking it and moving things around a little bit at a time to just improve it and make it better.
So if you guys have seen that kind of increase at reduced capacity, imagine what it might be if every chair is active, right?
Yes,
It's unbelievable.
Exciting.
It is unbelievable, yeah.
So how did the team adapt to all these changes? Because obviously it was, and you're changing it daily. You know, it's not just you come in day 1 and you've got new rules. Day 2, you've got different new rules.
Yes.
So you mean to go first?
Yeah, you can go first.
So that's a great question. Whenever we closed like 8 weeks ago, we we stayed intentional with our team, like we had 2 Zoom calls a week, Tuesday and Thursdays, and they were hour and a half, I think, or 2 hours.
An hour and a half.
Hour and a half. And so that was intentional to stay in touch with the team. What's going on? This is what I'm doing with the unemployment to try to get unemployment. This is what we're doing with the PPP. This is what we're doing with the team, and this is what we're doing with some revenue generating things, and just keeping them up, and then also having them generate different things like staying in contact with their guests, creating videos. Like every week we had multiple videos, tutorials coming out. And we're bringing the team in rarely every little bit to do like teaching, like video. We created an entire video series for our brand for training during that time. And so we stayed engaged with that, but here's what our challenge is, and this is what our encouragement is to every one of you leaders out there, is over communicate. We communicated a lot with our guests and with our team, and that made a huge difference. But over communicate, and then whenever your team comes back, still over communicate, because we all fall out of awareness. And that's exactly what happened. Was we have a team coming back. We have 15 team members. They come back, and they've been doing the same thing 8 weeks in a row, waking up and hitting snooze and being out of integrity.
No structure, really.
No structure.
Yeah.
And then we're bringing them in, and we're expecting structure.
And more structure than usual.
More,
yeah, a lot,
exactly.
A lot. And what we have been falling into is like taking it personal sometimes, that they're not doing what we want them to do. And what's awesome and gives us power in that is we have core values that the team created themselves and that they agree to live into. And so we go to them and say, listen, is this who you're committed to being? Are you in integrity in this? Are you having fun in this? Are you in teamwork in this? Or is this excellence? Is this a servant's heart? Is this learning? Are you falling in line with our core values? And if not, change it. It's up to you. And they're able to see that when you come from that point of view that they've agreed to, and you flip it from being emotional, a charged event to, because it's not personal. They're not doing it personally against us, and it's not personal with us against them. It's literally.
You can feel like it though.
Absolutely can feel that way. But just over communicate, stay with your team, and listen. Come back in line here, come back in line here, come back in line here, and let's stay in line, because you have a culture. And either you as a leader, like the speed of the leader determines the pace of the pack. So you as a leader need to show up like you should be showing up if you want your team to do it. And then 2, over communicate with the team, and that will be powerful.
Yeah. And I was going to say our biggest challenge has been communication.
Yep.
Because we're used to a huddle every morning at 9 o'clock, and we're all on the same page when we start the day. And now we have one stylist coming in early in the morning, and then they're staggered throughout the whole day. So there's no single time that we're all in the same room together anymore. And that's been our biggest challenge, is how do we update a new change? You know, we're going to do a new checkout. How do we tell the whole team?
And
it has
constant.
Literally been a nightmare. And so what we decided to do was to take all communication to Google Chat. And in Google Chat, you can create rooms, so you can have only certain people see certain messages, like front desk sees front desk messages. And it's just categorized stuff, because we were trying to do like group messaging on our phones. And we don't all have iPhones, so it wasn't jiving right. We were missing messages, you know. It was very confusing. And so we've taken it over there. And while that's been a challenge for our team, because it's new, and we're not used to communicating that way, it has been the best route that we have been able to find so far to be able to communicate and get information out there. But what I think is the hardest part is they're not hearing our voice. They're not hearing our heart. They're seeing things through messaging, and it's just not the same. So we're still trying to figure that out. It's been really tough. And we're used to a culture that's all on the same page, and we are united. And sometimes it doesn't feel that way, because we're all doing different things at different times. So it's definitely been challenging, but we're looking for new opportunities and new ways to constantly improve it.
Well, you guys are also taking what you've learned and creating a series for other owners out there. Talk a little bit about that. How are you doing it, and when will it be ready?
Yeah, so we're working with Patrick Cox on this, and in fact, over the weekend, the last 4 or 5 days, we've created how we're going to do a series, and we're going to start rolling that out. So the planning phase is this week, and then I imagine that we will start announcing it by the 8th when it's going to be coming out. We're going to be on Cup of Lauren with Lauren Gartland, the same one you were on the other day.
Yeah.
We're going to be on that one on the 8th, and we'll probably be just go to our website on that day type of thing.
Mm-hmm. But I'm thinking it's going to be 4 to 5 video series, but we're also thinking about options of one-on-one coaching as well as in-salon coaching, because I really understand scheduling. And I think that if other salons had that tool of being able to schedule things strategically and the opportunities are so endless when you have an amazing schedule. So that's definitely going to be a huge part of it.
Yeah.
Well, and we don't know yet how long this new normal is going to be our normal, or if we're going to be able to, change some of it back to the way it used to be, at least with social distancing. But there's no doubt that what you're learning now is going to benefit you moving forward, no matter how that normal transitions, right?
Yeah.
Yes, this has been a big season of just a lot of learning for us. And we could look at it as a negative thing that we've been through. It was really tough. It was very challenging, but we also can look at it as an opportunity to learn things that we would have never learned any other way. COVID-19 presented a lot of opportunities of learning. That is for sure.
Yeah, and I want to piggyback on that same thing is to the salon owners out there, give yourself some grace.
Yeah.
Because you haven't ever been through this, and neither has anybody else, and people expect us to know what to do and when to do it and how to do it, and no one has a clue what to do. And so give yourself some grace, and when you're having communication with your team and with your guest, be transparent and vulnerable and let them know, listen, I am doing my best and I will do everything I can to serve you. And I think they'll see that if you're speaking from your heart that way.
Something just funny.
What you've learned in realizing when something isn't working and not beating yourself up about it, but figuring out how to make it work the way you want it to is big. Because it's easy to go, I had this grand plan and it's not working, let's just throw in the towel. Yeah.
Oh, attached.
In week 1, I just started laughing because, as a boss, people go to you for all the answers. And in week 1, I literally did not have the answers for the first time in a really long time. I'm used to having the answers for everyone. And so it just got to be comical because people are coming to me with questions and I'm like, I have no idea. And I'm okay with that. This is the first time I have been through this. We don't have it figured out. And so we did have to give ourselves some extra grace in that area. Otherwise, we would be beating ourselves up for not knowing. And, we just have to figure it out. There's no way to just know.
Well, thank you all for sharing what you have learned so far. And I'm excited to see how it transitions, as you're in business longer and longer, and what things really are the key to making a difference.
Thank you. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Stacey, thank you for the time.
Yes,
You're welcome.
It was enjoyable.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Guys. See you.